Good evening. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Southwest Study Group meeting for the Westside Trail access point at Ralph David Abernathy. The meeting is scheduled to start at 6:30. It's 6:32. There are 62 people in the public virtual space, and we're going to give it a few more minutes to allow people to come online via Facebook and via Zoom, and we'll get started very briefly. If you just came online, thank you again. You're in the right place. The virtual meeting for Ralph David Abernathy access point to the Westside Trail. It's just a few minutes after 6:30, and we're allowing just a few more minutes for the room to fill up. Thank you for being patient, and we'll get started very briefly. All right, it looks like people are still joining, and I want to honor your time and go ahead and get started. Good evening again for those of us who have just joined, and welcome to the virtual space. We're here tonight to talk about the design of the BeltLine Westside Trail access point at 1385 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, which is just near the intersection of South Gordon Street. My name is Whitney Fuller. I am your friendly neighborhood community engagement manager for the Atlanta BeltLine Inc. The Atlanta BeltLine Inc. is the organization responsible for implementing the vision of the Atlanta BeltLine. And study group meetings like this one tonight are intended to be a forum to update you on current BeltLine projects in your geography, like the access point design. They also serve as an opportunity for you to ask questions about these projects. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and posted on our website at beltline.org/meetings. And at this time, I want to pause and take a look in the room and see if we have elected officials that have joined us. I'd like to give them a minute to welcome us to the space. I'm just looking around and I don't think I see our elected officials yet. And I know that there are a few meetings going on tonight, and if they hop on, I'll make the space for us or for them to welcome us here. So hello for folks who are on the phone listening. Hello to those of you who are on Facebook Live and on Zoom. The intention for tonight's meeting, as with all of our meetings, is to establish an equitable community engagement process that creates trust and transparency with you, the community, and the Atlanta BeltLine Inc. The purpose and outcomes of our meeting tonight is to share an update with the neighbors who live around the access point at 1385 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, and to answer any questions and hear any comments, and to allow us to provide clarity around that project tonight. So let's get started with who is in the virtual room. I said before that Atlanta BeltLine Inc. is the organization responsible for the implementation of the vision for the Atlanta BeltLine. And as such, there are many different people that make that happen. We have several members of the ABI team on our call tonight. Atlanta BeltLine is committed to creating a culture within the organization that values and advances equity and inclusion. And part of that comes with representation of our BeltLine neighborhoods on our BeltLine staff. So participating with you all tonight are the various members up here on our screen on our staff that are here to support your experience with a presentation, by being expert voice in the room, by facilitating conversations in the chat, or by helping to answer your questions on Facebook Live and in the Q&A. I'm pausing to take another look at the room and see if I see any guests joining us, and I don't. So we'll go on into the format for the meeting tonight. At this time, I'll just take the opportunity to provide an overview of what the logistics of virtual meeting looks like. There are 81 people, 82 people. The number just keeps growing. Very good. Watching right now on our Zoom virtual meeting platform. And some of those people have even called in on the phone. Several more of you are listening via our Facebook Live broadcast. And if you are watching from an online browser, we provide an agenda that's just appearing at the top of your screen. It's a little bar at the top. For each slide tonight, you'll be reminded of where we are in the conversation by just looking up at that agenda. You'll see the topic highlighted. For those of you listening on the phone, I'll walk you through the agenda right now. We are starting our conversation here with welcome housekeeping items. We'll move the conversation into how we got here, to this conversation of designing the access point at RDA. We'll talk about, finally, what you really want to know is what the final design looks like and our construction schedule. And then we'll open up the conversation for question and answers. You may have noticed by now that your line is muted, and that just helps us provide the best listening experience for everyone on the line. A recording of this meeting will be accessible after tonight. It'll be posted on our website, as well as a transcript of our question and answers. And you may use the question and answer box if you are on the Zoom platform at any time to relay your questions, and we will answer them at that time in the meeting. If you're on Facebook Live, you can use the comment section to ask your questions or pose your comments. All of our supporting material will be found at beltline.org/meetings. And our team member will put that information in the chat for you to be reminded. If you're having any technical difficulties tonight during the meeting, please email us at engage@beltline.org, atlbeltline.org. And should you encounter any technical difficulties tonight, we appreciate your patience while we figure those things out. Now, we are in a very unique situation in the world, and our city has been through a lot recently. And the Atlanta BeltLine Inc. and the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership have partnered with the philanthropic community to help longtime residents of the Atlanta BeltLine neighborhoods stay in their homes. The new Legacy Resident Retention Program is modeled after the Westside Future Funds program, which aims to provide financial assistance for BeltLine residents experiencing tax increases over a 10-year period. We are accepting applications for new Legacy Resident Retention Program right now. The application and the eligibility requirements can be found on our website. Just go to beltline.org and type in Legacy Resident retention program, and we'll make that link available for you in the chat. The Atlanta BeltLine Partnership and Atlanta BeltLine Inc.'s Economic Development Team have partnered with Strive and Juvo Jobs to connect the BeltLine residents to workforce training and job opportunities in their geography. Strive has a proven 5-pillar model: job readiness training, occupational skills training, career coaching and case management, job placement, and lifetime support that creates a clear pathway to long-term career success. The partnership will provide residents with skills they need to secure family-sustaining jobs. They can live, work, and thrive along the Atlanta BeltLine corridor. And in collaboration with Juvo Jobs, which is a mobile application, Juvo Jobs 360 helps residents find hyperlocal work inside their communities by just downloading the Juvo Jobs app and applying for jobs on your mobile device. Whether you're walking, driving, or taking public transportation, the app alerts you about job openings nearby. The Juvo Job app also assists businesses with sharing their openings to talented people who are near them. And if you want to have more information about that application and the great resources that I just listed, you just have to visit our website, beltline.org/workforce-partnerships. And that link will be provided in the chat. Finally, the Atlanta BeltLine Inc. ABI has a business facade partnership. You get it, like the art in partnership? It's a grant partnership with local artists that make and makers professionals with local businesses to complete capital improvements to the facades of their business site. The 2020 and 2021 Business Facade Partnership Grant Program kicked off last year, and the selection of 4 business owners has brought us over to this year, where we have an open call for artists and makers who would like to participate in the program by improving facades of local businesses. And that application closes just a few days on February 8th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Be sure to share this opportunity with a talented artist in your life, and more information about that can be found on our website, and we will provide the link in the chat. Now, before we dive deeper into the conversation about RDA, I would like to get a sense of who is in the virtual room. There's 93 participants here at the time, and we'll just start with a few polls, the first of which, if you are participating on Zoom, you'll see the poll pop up right now. If you're on Facebook Live, you can read the question on the screen. For those of you on the phone, I'll read the question aloud to you now. What neighborhood do you live in? And I'm just looking around. Do you live in Westview, West End neighborhood, Westwood neighborhood, Bush Mountain neighborhood, Oakland City, Cascade Avenue neighborhood, Adair Park? Are you in a neighborhood in the city of Atlanta that's not on this list? Are you on a neighborhood that's not in the city of Atlanta? The results of the poll show that most of the 93 participants on Zoom, and there are many more on Facebook, live in Westview neighborhood. 9% are in West End. There's another large portion of participants who are joining us to show love from neighborhoods around the city that are not on this list. Going on to the second question. How long have you lived or how do you feel about the BeltLine coming? And there's a typo here in the Zoom question, but the question should read, how do you feel about the access point that's coming to Ralph David Abernathy? Are you thrilled about it? Happy? You don't have an opinion? Are you apprehensive or upset? There's a few more seconds in the poll. And for the most part, y'all are thrilled. I'm thrilled too. A few of us are, to a lesser degree, happy. Some have no opinion. 2% are apprehensive and 2% are upset. And we hope to hear about that later this evening in the question and answer. The next question, how many BeltLine meetings have you been to? None. And this would be your first one, 1 through 4, or 5 or more meetings. Few more seconds for that poll. And there are 24% of you, to count 12% of you participating in this poll, that have not attended any meetings. To a larger degree, many of you have attended 5 or more meetings, and 25% have attended 1 through 4 meetings. And the final poll at the top of our meeting, how would you rate your knowledge of the BeltLine portfolio of projects? Would you say that you're an expert? In which case, when people say they're an expert, I get a little nervous. Not gonna be inauthentic about it. Or do you know more than most, but you could always learn more? Do you know a lot, but want to learn more, or you don't know anything and here to soak it up? A few more moments for that poll to conclude. And the results show that 53% of participants tonight know more than most. A lesser degree, 13% are experts. 32% don't know a lot and want to learn more. And 2% do not know anything. And those are all perfect places to start our conversation tonight about the Atlanta BeltLine. And we always start with the Atlanta BeltLine vision, because as you can see, there is always at least one person in the room. There are many people in the room in this case that have not participated with us before. And so we owe it to them to share the overall vision for the Atlanta BeltLine. And I'll start by just stating what our vision statement is: to be the catalyst for making Atlanta a global beacon for equitable and inclusive and sustainable city life. And what that looks like is, in 2005, I started to say, in the year 2005, long, long ago, in a far off land, the Atlanta BeltLine had a vision that centered around connecting this historic railroad corridor that was abandoned in many places and underutilized in others, to establish this continuous 22-mile loop of light rail streetcar transit. Running next door to that transit would be 33 miles of multi-use trails. And if you're following on Zoom, you'll notice that all of these statistics I'm pointing out are points on our graphic. If you're listening on the phone, use your imagination. So we would have trails in transit running next to each other with the goal of creating 1,300 acres of parks and green space. Next to that would be beautiful art installations. And so public art is a part of our program elements. Bringing all that together is a goal of establishing 5,600 units of housing affordability. And how we do all of that is by creating jobs in construction and permanent jobs. So there is a goal on the bottom right-hand side of the graphic of creating 48,000 temporary construction jobs, and up in the left-hand icon, 30,000 permanent and full-time jobs throughout the lifetime of this project. all while remediating 1,100 acres of brownfields. Equity and inclusion and community engagement are the tools that tie all of these program elements together. And the broader vision had, and someone saying wonderful, the broader vision had the goal of being executed by the year of 2030. So starting in the year 2005, going to the year of 2030. And those are all of the different elements that make up this Atlanta Beltline vision. But tonight we are going to focus on one very specific conversation, and that is the access point at Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard. To that point, I want to introduce you to my colleague, Hope Gist. Hope, come on and properly pronounce your name and title and get us started with how we got here.
Hey, Whitney, you got it right. Hey, everyone, my name is Hope Gist, and I'm the project manager for this project. I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And in order to give some of you who might or might not have joined us in person last year, we're going to give you guys a chance to catch up. So we're going to take you all through how we arrived at the final design. So tonight I'll take you through how we got here and why we need another access point, the process and schedule, some initial design concepts, some revisions based on other meetings, the final design, and the tentative construction schedule, in addition to some quick facts. So just how we got here. In 2015, ABI actually purchased this particular parcel for the purpose of actually creating an access point for the Westside Trail. And in 2017, the ABI and the Westview community came together to really cultivate a complete street vision for RDA Boulevard. And in 2018, ABI began working internally to develop some concepts. But some of those efforts had to be put on hold due to staff resources. And in 2019, we restarted up the process because some new ABI staff, including myself, were hired, and some of the issues that we had before kind of went away. So we were able to really be able to deliver this design effort. All right, so why do we need another access point? As some of you guys can imagine, I'm gonna actually use my pointer here. As some of you guys can imagine, the current access point in this area of the Westside Trail is actually here. So it comes up near the Kroger. And if you are a pedestrian, a bicyclist, you all see that intersection there, and that can be super scary. So that's one of the reasons why we're actually upgrading it, just to provide some access to other parts of the neighborhoods in this area. In addition, we also are upgrading some road elements in the South Gordon RDA intersection, just to make it safer for anyone using the access point to even kind of cross the road. All right, so some of the design process and schedule that I mentioned earlier. Give me 1 second. So initially, we came to the community in November 2019, and we presented a couple of initial concepts that we developed along with our design consultant, Tool Design. Next, we collected and incorporated the feedback that we received from that November 2019 meeting into some revised concepts that we presented at a in-person meeting that we had in January of 2020. And after that, we told you guys we were gonna come back here today. So what we did was we collected feedback at that meeting and asked the community kind of to select a preferred design concept to incorporate into the final design. And I'll just note that even though we had some concepts, we were able to refine the design. There are some elements that we obviously, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we're able to incorporate in the final design, but I guess the essence of the design is the same. So I guess without further ado, tonight's meeting will discuss that final design that we're going to be sending to get permitted for construction. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to actually kick it over to our design team to kind of go through some of the initial concepts.
Good evening. I'm Matt Moffitt with Tool Design. I'm going to take you through the initial concepts and then work into the final design. So for concept A, the focus was really on providing a sizable gathering space for the community, while also providing direct access to the BeltLine Trail through stairs as well as a ramp. The concept also provided some lawn space along the BeltLine Trail. Then we've got a natural area there on the northern section of the site. Concept B was really more of kind of a leisurely ramp style, more of an alluvial design, and it incorporated kind of some lawn space for the community as well as a gathering space with some outdoor seating. And then design or initial concept C focused on kind of maximizing that community gathering space. We've got a couple locations for outdoor seating, direct access to the trail through stairs as well as a ramp. And we've also incorporated the kind of terrace seating there along the stairs on that south side.
All right, so just transitioning back to me. So some of the highlights that we received from you guys were to maintain a separate circulation path away from the plaza and seating area, to add some landscaping like as a buffer closer to RDA as a sound and shade and visual buffer. Also adding some fencing or a barrier between the sidewalk and RDA. Next, keeping some of the tiered seating overlooking the BeltLine, and also adjusting the crosswalk location, as you guys saw on South Gordon.
So in the revised concept C, we took the feedback from the community and we kept the gathering space there at the south side, but provided more canopy coverage there along RDA, have a more direct ramp down to the Atlanta BeltLine Trail, and we've also incorporated that terrace seating on the north side.
All right, so we're gonna actually get into some of the South Gordon street intersection improvements before we get into the juicy part of explaining the final design. So just to recap and zooming out from the selected design of the actual access point, one of the elements that we wanted to highlight in this area was the fact that to reduce some speeds, I guess some turning speeds, what we did was tighten up the radius coming out of South Gordon. We use that, we use adding a little bit more islands and bumping out the curb to achieve that. Next slide. Secondly, initially or currently, if you guys go out there, there are 3 existing crosswalks in this area on South Gordon. So what we did was consolidate this into a singular crosswalk to minimize points where pedestrians would encounter vehicles. So just making it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists who are walking out there. Next slide. Thirdly, we work to really increase the amount of landscape and impervious area in this area. The landscaping will be low maintenance in construction. Typically we use Trees Atlanta and they maintain it for the first 2 years, but we're aiming to put in very hardy landscaping that looks beautiful and also works well in this area. Next slide. This fourth element is really adding a mixing or dismount area. I'm gonna point it out for you guys. In this area is a mixing or dismount area for bicyclists in the bike lane to dismount, get onto the sidewalk and then cross in the same crosswalk with pedestrians, while the bicyclists going through an RDA can continue to roll in the bike lane. The next element is actually, well, this fifth element is a solar power RRFB, and that stands for Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacon, which is a safety feature that alerts traffic when pedestrians have activated the push button to cross RDA. So you'll be able to walk up, press the button, flashes will go off. That way, any vehicles in the area will know to slow down and that someone is trying to cross at the crosswalk. And the sixth and final element is another mixing area that's also, it can be used as the entrance to the plaza. But as I mentioned before, this area is going to be used to separate those, one, who are using stairs, two, those who are using the plaza, and three, those who are using the ramp, just so that there are three distinct places for folks to enter and exit the access point. And without further ado, I'm actually going to kick it back over to Matt, and he's going to go through the final design for you guys.
So the design team's primary goal was to provide safe access from the sidewalk on RDA Boulevard down to the Atlanta BeltLine Trail. The challenge we found once we got into the technical aspects is there's about a 10-foot vertical drop between the roadway of RDA and the Westside Access Trail. And we wanted to minimize the amount of space that the ramp took up in order to provide the community with more usable space. But once we settled on the ramp and its location, our focus shifted to reviewing the feedback and looking to incorporate what was noted from those community meetings. And what we ultimately ended up with was creating a large flexible space for the community and really maximizing the planting within the space to provide shade as well as continue the canopy coverage through that Westside Trail corridor. Other elements that we've woven into the design are our installation locations as well as lighting. We've got 2 art pads. One is on the southern border of the plaza space, and then we've also got one that is in line with that crosswalk, kind of as a focal piece for that, initial entrance into the site. The improvements to the South Gordon Street and RDA intersection have been designed with safety for all modes in mind. The narrowing of RDA at the crosswalk with the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, the raised islands, and pedestrian refuge are all incorporated to slow drivers and bring attention to pedestrians and cyclists as they cross the roadway. The bump outs at South Gordon Street narrow the travel lanes and force vehicles to slow down as they enter and exit South Gordon Street. Our design team was also able to widen the sidewalk on the southern commercial section of Gordon Street and RDA, allowing business owners to provide cafe seating, display their merchandise, and to provide pedestrians with additional separation from vehicular traffic. Overall, the access point design and Gordon Street intersection improvements provide a community gathering space for events, recreation, and relaxation, as well as creating a significantly safer access to the BeltLine Trail without having to cross Cascade Boulevard. The two sections convey major points within the site design. Section A runs through the design plaza space and shows the vertical progression down the site and helps identify the vertical challenges, while Section B shows the direct access to the BeltLine Trail, as well as the bottom of the ramp structure. Here in Section A, you can see the progression from the bike lane to the sidewalk, down to the plaza space, then down to the initial landing for the beginning of the ramp, as well as the Westside Trail. The section really emphasizes the opportunities of viewing down onto the BeltLine Trail and really gives reference to the challenges of the site with the grade. Section B shows the direct access to the BeltLine Trail via the stairway on the northern section. The section references the grade change once again between the roadways and the west side, or the BeltLine Trail. It also shows kind of how large that wall is compared to the users, and it really kind of gives an idea of how that wall ties into the existing wall that parallels the BeltLine Trail at the moment.
All right, thanks, Matt, for all that great information. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions from everyone, but just some final design facts for you guys. We received some of these questions before in the community meetings, and we know that the Westview neighbors are super savvy and advocated heavily to make sure that this access point would become a reality. So I compiled a few quick facts that, like I said, will possibly answer a few lingering questions before we head into the Q&A. So the good news is that ABI has allocated construction funding for this project in this fiscal year budget. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. That's why, one, we're really excited to bring this to you guys, and just happy to keep everything moving. Also, previously we received questions about stormwater management, about just about shade and a lot of other elements. So just to give you guys an idea, you can see that there's a lot more green space. And just to throw some numbers out there, we're adding almost 2,500 square feet of green space. And this is only important because it helps really manage any water that might, or I guess I'll say, prevent a lot of runoff and extra water from being put into the system on RDA. For those of you who are technical, we threw some jargon at the bottom. You're happy to take a look at it, but that's just some quick facts for you guys. Next slide. So final design and construction schedule. So we wanted to let you guys know that we are still working on a few small details in the plans, but we are working with a design team to submit the plans for permitting to the city of Atlanta and also GDOT very soon. Then ABI internally will need to move into a procurement process to solicit bids from contractors. And then after the permitting and procurement process is complete, and we're hoping that the project will move into the construction phase if all goes well. We're trying to aim towards summer of 2021 this year. And at this time, according to our design team, The construction should take between 6 to 8 months and get us into early 2022. So that's where we are. I'm going to kick it back over to Whitney to take us into our Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Hope. Thank you, Matt. And I want to do things a little differently tonight because I noticed there are some people on the phone, and I want to give phone participants the opportunity to ask questions or make your comments. You can do so by pressing *9 on your keypad. When you press *9 on your keypad, you'll hear the operator tell you to unmute your phone by pressing *6. And once we see, and I'm going to swivel my head and see if I notice that your hand is raised. Once we see your hand is raised, our staff will help you be noticed to speak next. If you're on the Zoom platform right now, which the bulk of you are, you can type your question in the chat, or excuse me, in the Q&A box. I saw a few of you do that already, and we will address your questions. As well as you can use the raise your hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You'll notice there's a little hand there. And if you press that, you can raise your hand to speak and we'll unmute you so you can voice your question. If you are participating on Facebook Live, feel free to use the comment section and one of our team members will uplift your comment or question. We do always give the opportunity for people to ask questions in advance by emailing our meetings at atlantabeltline.org email inbox. We didn't have any questions come in advance, so Hope, I will get started by going to the Q&A box. And I noticed that staff members helped us answer questions earlier in the presentation when I was giving the BeltLine 101. Someone asked how much of what was in the vision has been accomplished so far. So if you remember that 101 slide that had that really cute BeltLine loop going around in blue and all of the different statistics around it, someone wanted to know how much of that is done. So I'm looking off to the side to grab my notes, and I'll just answer that for everyone's benefit. The Atlanta BeltLine has accomplished the following project goals with rail, the 22-mile goal. 80% of the transit corridor has been secured in terms of the BeltLine owning the right-of-way. Of the goal to develop 1,300 acres of new parks and green spaces, 30% of new green spaces have been delivered so far. Of the goal of creating 33 miles of multi-use urban trails, 33% of multi-use trails have been delivered in full build out so far. Of the goal to develop 5,600 units of housing affordability, 38% of affordable workforce housing units have been delivered so far. As far as the goal of $10 billion in economic development, spurring $10 billion in economic development, 46% of that goal has been realized. As far as the goal to create 48,000 construction jobs, 37% of that job creation goal has been achieved. With regard to public art, 450 public art installations and performances have been delivered thus far. And finally, with regard to environmental cleanup, 36% of the 1,100 acres have been delivered so far. That was a lot to say. I am glad to know that we've accomplished all of those things. When you're working on it, sometimes you can lose sight. I'll go back to the Q&A box, and there is a feature in the Q&A box for you to upvote a question. So if you go there as a participant and see there is a question someone has asked and you wanted to ask the same question, or maybe you want to hear the answer, you can click the thumbs up button, and that will uplift that question for me to notice and ask next. And I see a few of you doing that. I don't notice anyone with hands up, so I'll ask the upvoted question. What's going to happen with that old Chinese restaurant next next to the access point. I had to say it like that. That old Chinese restaurant. What's going to happen?
Hey, Whitney. So I don't think we have any ABI economic development folks in the room. However, I personally haven't heard anything, but we're going to take this question back so we can get some answers for you guys. But this project, even though we're abutting that property, we are not encroaching onto their property. And if somebody comes forward and wants to coordinate with us, we'd probably be glad to do so.
Thank you, Hope. And I did get that question a few weeks ago when I was talking to other neighborhood associations. They wanted to know the same thing. And the Atlanta BeltLine has a design review committee whenever there is a commercial project coming forward adjacent to our project or within the planning area. They're responsible for presenting their plans to us, and we haven't had anyone officially come forward. And as soon as we have information, we'll make sure to share it with the community. Another question was asked, I answered that already. The next question is for the construction. Okay, that question disappeared. This question, in terms of safety at night, how does the final design incorporate lighting?
Thanks, Whitney. So that is a good question. We did cover the lighting in the design, but I'm gonna let Matt kind of take it away and talk about some of the things that we're doing to make sure this access point, 1, is safe, 2, is well lit.
So we have incorporated lighting into the design. We've got light poles that are along the proposed sidewalk. We've also got an additional light pole in the plaza space. And then we have a light pole that sits on top of the existing wall between the ramp and the wall about midway through the proposed ramp. But what we've also done is we're going to include wall packs, which are flush with that wall. So these areas where that wall gets pretty tall and we have concerns about shadows and things like that, we've got those wall packs to make sure that the entire ramp is well lit and people feel safe and comfortable. We've also included 2 security cameras just to make sure that, people are able to use it at night without concern.
All right, thanks, Matt. I guess Whitney, I guess take it away on the next question.
Yeah, I hope I'll do that. The next question is about the RFP process. Is there a focus on using minority-owned construction companies for the RFP for construction?
So at ABI, we definitely encourage minority-owned businesses to bid and be involved with the ABI projects, especially construction projects. I guess one of the things that we'll kind of put out there, if anyone knows anyone who is a minority business owner who owns a construction company, if you can email us and make sure that you're on our vendor list. And what happens with that, our procurement team, when we put these things out to bid, will email folks who are in various folks who have various construction backgrounds, whether it's grading, whether it's concrete, whether it's a granite wall that we have, lighting, electrical, that they're aware. So I think the biggest thing is about exposure and making sure that everyone knows that we're coming to the streets with new projects. So we do encourage, we have DBE goals that we encourage for Atlanta BeltLine projects. So I guess that's one of the things, just encourage anyone that you know to get on our list. I guess, Beth, your hand is raised.
I'd like to add something too. I just wanted to say that I've been actively recruiting and networking with DBE contractors to try to get them to participate in our bid on this project, because it is a great size for someone to get engaged with our projects. So we're actively recruiting and identify companies and let them know about this.
And Kim, I think somebody, you potentially email engage at ATL BeltLine if you have that contact information with somebody we haven't touched. So like I said, we can put them on our vendor list, and also potentially you can get in contact with Kim, who is our VP of Design Construction, if you have any questions about the entire ABI Design and Construction team in our program. And Beth, do you have anything?
No, I was really just waving at Kim when she came on screen.
Okay.
Thank you, team. And someone from our team will put that link in the chat, because we know we have business owners on the phone, and many of you have friends who are business owners and may be in the construction field and able to help. So we'll put that link to the vendor registry in the chat. The next question, Hope, is for you. This person really does like this project. Thank you so much for the gratitude. Aside from the crosswalk at South Gordon, are there any plans to address the visibility for drivers at that blind corner before South Gordon and Ralph David Abernathy? So I think they must be talking about coming from what is Ralph David Abernathy before it turns into Cascade.
So I'm actually going to kick this over to Matt, since he helped develop, just to go over some elements of what we're doing to try to maintain visibility in that area. If we are off base on the question, please feel free to provide some clarity, because we want to make sure that we clearly answer your question.
One question from me, is this northbound or southbound?
Maybe just cover both, Matt.
Okay, well, what we've done is with the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, we also redid all of the signage along Ralph David Abernathy. So there will be more signs that make drivers aware of that crosswalk, and additional signage at stop bars that are set back off of the crosswalk. So in terms of creating greater visibility, they're really outside of the site. What we've done is provided additional signage to make drivers aware as they're coming down Ralph David Abernathy. And the rectangular rapid flashing beacons should really alert drivers to if there are pedestrians in that crosswalk area.
All right. So like I said, thank you. If we need some clarification, let us know. But I guess we'll move on to the next question, Whitney.
Yes, we will. And for anyone that feels like you need some more clarification, feel free to just raise your hand and we can go directly to you and make sure we address it. So the next person, Abi, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, but first of all, gave us kudos. Thank you so much to the entire team for all of your hard work on this final design. And it's funded. Did we mention that? It's funded. That is something to applaud. My question is, can you speak to if GDOT has gotten a preview of the final design and if they foresee GDOT pushing back on it for permitting from the permitting perspective?
All right, so I'm gonna actually pull a new face here that you guys haven't seen tonight. Hopefully I don't pull them off guard. Drew from Volkert, do you mind turning on your video?
Sure. Can you see me?
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
All right, I think that's a question for you.
Sure. I've turned my video on. Hopefully y'all can see it, or it will come up in just a second. But no, yes, that's a very astute observation. Ralph David Abernathy is a state road, so will require GDOT involvement and permitting, as was alluded to earlier in the presentation. GDOT has had a preview of this concept. We've actually submitted a concept report to GDOT and gotten their initial buy-in, not the official permit by any means, but we've gotten their buy-in on the project and feel like we have their support. And so we're moving into the finalizing the design as we speak and moving into the permitting phase, as Hope mentioned earlier in the presentation. Hopefully that answers the question, Hope. If I didn't, or you feel like I didn't, just let me know if I need to elaborate on anything.
I think, Abby, let us know. But like I said, we've been working with GDOT. We made sure that we got some, also we did ask for some letters of support from some community members, just to make sure that GDOT was very aware that also that this is an ABI-led project, but it's an ABI project that has strong community support. Not just us wanting to design something, but the fact that we've taken this to the community multiple times, and the community was able to weigh in on some of this. And like Drew said, we'll get through the permitting, but we feel like we're on a strong technical basis to make sure that GDOT is able to approve this, hopefully, cross my fingers, with no issue. Whitney, next question.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. There is a question from Clutch Bicycle Shop, which is right across the street from the access point. Her question, as I'm scrolling back up to it, is there an entrance to the BeltLine across from the bike shop? And this presentation is all about you, because for the most part, this access point is across the street from the bike shop. It's just up to the corner where South Gordon intersects with RDA. And I think the follow-up to that was, and Michelle, feel free if you'd like to come on audio and follow up to make sure we clearly address your question.
Hey, Whitney, I put a little arrow in the presentation just to kind of give folks an idea of where Clutch Bicycle is located. I just put the address just for identification, but that's in the vicinity of Clutch. So basically folks would just be able to cross one crosswalk across South Gordon, then cross across RDA, and then hit the BeltLine.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
No problem.
Another question is, great design overall, but can you explain how cyclists access the ramp? It seems like there are a lot of space allocated to the westbound cyclists and potentially some conflict with pedestrians. And so Hope, when you're explaining this, if you just want to orient us to what's north, south, east, and west.
All right. Thank you, guys. So I'm going to use my pointer on this one. It's the red arrow. So for you guys, this right here is the bike lane, and that is the southbound on RDA. So basically somebody coming from all the other businesses, KIPP STRIVE, will be able to get in the bike lane, travel down. And at this point, anyone who is on a bicycle would like to actually use the crosswalk. This area is actually where they'll pull up, and we're going to have signs out there to ask bicyclists to dismount in order to walk their bike here and mix, as I mentioned before, with pedestrians in order to walk across the street at RDA. Now, the other area, which is actually kind of covered by the text, is here for folks going northbound. Well, going northbound, we're going to have two different types of areas here, but in the same manner, bikes will be able to make that little right turn, hop off their bike, and get into the plaza area or onto the ramp or take the stairs if they like. And bicyclists continuing to go northbound would be able to continue in the bike lane. Likewise, someone who would want to enter the bike lane from the plaza would be able to hop on their bike at the location that I indicated with the red arrow, and then yield and then hop into the bike lane. So just really easy. Just as I mentioned before, this kind of allows proper mixing. So treating bicyclists as pedestrians, going across the street, but bicycles can continue to travel in the bike lane and not have to slow down if they're not actually going to the access point. I hope that answered your question. That's why we have the mixing zones there, to keep the bike traffic moving, the through bike traffic moving, and then for folks who want to dismount and cross the street, they can just easily get out of the way, dismount, cross the street.
Hope, there is a related question about how the raised sidewalks and medium near the crosswalk on RDA, how will that affect school pickup and traffic? Because KIPP is just located to the north of this site.
Give me 1 second. That is actually a Matt question. And we might have to have a discussion about that one. Maybe somebody misspoke just based on some things that we knew that GDOT was probably not gonna approve, but Matt, if you're gonna clarify, or if Drew, you need to hop in. Sean, if you wanna hop in here.
Matt, you want to?
Is this more of like a loading question, I guess, in terms of cars backed up into the intersection, or just dropping off?
And Matt, you may address both. It's hard to say. I don't see any follow-up from that participant who asked the question.
I think it's a traffic question. Like, is the crosswalk going to back traffic up and slow traffic down? That's.
I can answer that, but I think it speaks also to the complete streets that's going on in the RDA corridor, more so northbound. There's actually an additional crosswalk that we're putting in over by KIPP's, which hopefully students are using that more so, unless they're trying to access the trail, which then I believe they would stay on the east sidewalk to get down to the BeltLine Trail. But I don't think this crosswalk with RDA would be the one that would really back up traffic. I think the one that is located further north up near KIPP's would possibly back up traffic. That's kind of out of our sight.
Thank you, Matt. A few more questions. One, Hope, can you give orientation? And you might have touched on some of this already. Just asking because shade trees are most effective if they block the south and the west sun. The details of tree placement is particularly beneficial to occupying the plaza during the hotter months.
Thanks, guys. So I'm a civil engineer, and I'm going to leave that up to our landscape architect. So I'm going to let Matt take some of the landscape related questions away about the tree orientation and the orientation of the sun at different points of the year and day.
So the rendering we're looking at right now is currently oriented north. So all of the tree locations, we've really got trees at the border of the entire site. And what's not shown on the rendering is a existing tree that sits right on our northern boundary. But in particular, with concern to southern and western sun, we've got ornamentals down close to RDA, and that's really going to kind of provide that southern sun, as well as the trees that we have within the plaza space. And then as the sun moves west, it really should be providing, plenty of shade throughout that plaza area. And I guess on that eastern corner, we've got a big oak that will kind of anchor that natural space that sits between the ramp and the plaza. But ultimately, we wanted to put trees where we could, try to keep them away from the walls, and give them enough space to where they can grow full and big. But yeah, ultimately, the drawing as it is today is at its northern orientation. So it's true to what you'd see on a map.
Thank you, Matt. And some follow-up to the question earlier about school pickup being impacted by that raised walkway. That question was more about traffic. So you were right, Kim, and cars backing up significantly enough for other cars to want to pass by and potentially cause some issues there. So thank you for that note and clarification. A couple of other questions. Is the seating permanent in the plaza space for it to remain open?
I guess that's going to be a question for me. So in the final design, we're not going to be including any seating. However, the plaza area that we've shown will stay open. We just wanted to really give, as Matt mentioned, a lot of shade for the summer months, but also an open area for people to, I guess when we get to the point again, to gather in the area and still be safe, but also cool. So that's kind of where we are, but no permanent seating is going to be installed as part of this project. A lot of what we showed earlier was some just initial concepts based on conversations. Sorry, Whitney, based on conversations with the community, but we'll not be including any seating in the plaza.
Thank you, Hope. And a question that I'll ask my colleague Jill Johnson to come on and answer. What is the intent of the special service district proposed recently?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Clearly.
Great. So earlier in the meeting, you heard Whitney talk about the vision for the Atlanta Beltline, and there was an earlier question about kind of where we stand on meeting our goals when it comes to bringing more mobility, more economic opportunity, and more housing and affordability around the entire 22-mile loop. We've made progress, but we're not there yet. And unfortunately, the primary funding mechanism for the Atlanta Beltline is called our tax allocation district. It was created in 2005, and it has a lifespan of about 25 years. For several reasons, including legal disputes and followed by a recession, that funding mechanism is now projected to fall short by more than $1 billion of its original projections. We are dedicated to fulfilling the vision of the Beltline, and we want the benefits of the Beltline to reach all communities, but we're going to need more resources to make it happen. So there has been legislation. The City Council is considering legislation right now that would create something called a special services district. And it's basically a way that it is basically a solution so that commercial and multifamily property owners that are located within the Beltline planning area would invest through a slight increase in the millage rate or property taxes to provide this critical funding that we need to help us complete the mainline Beltline trail. We're estimating we need about $350 million to complete the trail. And the special service district would help us get there by raising approximately $100 million of that. There are going to be lots of opportunities to talk about this proposal and this funding mechanism and how we make sure we fulfill the promise of the Beltline for all 45 plus communities around the loop moving forward. So that legislation, we have more information on our website at beltline.org/special-service-district. And we'll be having upcoming community meetings to come back to the community to talk further about this and get your feedback, share more information with you. Those community meetings will begin on February 15th and run through March 4th. And we look forward to answering more questions about the district then.
Thank you, Jill. And we'll get the details of those meetings to all of our participants at the end of the meeting, as well as make sure that link to the webpage is posted in our chat. I have a question about Reynoldstown. This question starts with a statement. My family are direct descendants of freed slaves who founded Reynoldstown and a national historic district, and I am hoping to get some of the houses still standing to be declared national historic landmarks and some business and green space developed all directly on the BeltLine in Reynoldstown. With whom should I speak with regarding the pursuits of this project? So I would I'll provide my information after this slide, and Will, if you want to progress there now, and we can put that in the chat and we can get a conversation started as soon as we're able to schedule. And I'm just looking back and forth to my chat, so don't mind the side of my head. This question is about cyclists. Would it be possible to have northbound cyclists just enter and exit the access point through the opening at the crosswalk rather than having so much space dedicated to the sort of on and off ramp northbound? Okay, I might have not said that right. Dedicated to the sort of off on northbound bike turn lane shown in the design.
Thanks, Whitney. So this is a good question. Some of the feedback that we receive sometimes about the BeltLine in general is all the mixing that happens. You have different speeds of how fast pedestrians walk, or if you have seniors, if you have folks who walk a little bit faster, if you have folks who are using any motorized carts or wheelchairs. We just wanted to provide some usable space, because otherwise, if we didn't have some of these little ramps, it wouldn't be something that would be super beneficial to the access point. So that's why we provided them, just to provide some mixing where necessary, and then separation just to help the flow of the bicycle traffic, the actual vehicular traffic, and the pedestrian traffic in this area. So we just wanted it to be super efficient in order to get and to enter and exit the access point. Matt, do you have any other comments or questions about what we did in the design?
I think you covered it well. I agree, and I think separating bicyclists from pedestrians or people moving into that space and designating space for the cyclists specifically really will kind of give them time to get off the ramp, demount, and really pace themselves with pedestrian traffic as they're moving down to the BeltLine. That I believe was really the key intent.
And I'll just add this from personal note. I've maybe not on the BeltLine, with other trails that I've ridden my bike on. Sometimes, if you have a very abrupt stop, you don't want to run anyone over. So that's one of the reasons why we did this, to kind of separate and give folks the visual indication that, oh, you need to move over to the right in order to use the crosswalk, or stay in the bike lane to keep going. It's all about the conflicts with the different modes that we're just trying to minimize. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Hope. There was a hand raised. I was looking for one of our participants who wanted to raise his hands and speak. Wesley, are you still there? just giving you a couple moments. And if not, we can come right back to you when you're ready. Hope, we had another question about master plan, and Hope, I don't know why I said you, because I can address this question. It seems like the West Side master plan that is posted on our website is dated 2010. Is there a more recent version available? So the sub area master plans are numbered 1 through 10. When you say West Side, I'm not sure if you mean Southwest Side, but there is a current update or a draft update that's planned to be approved hopefully by the neighborhoods, MPUs, and council this year in 2021. And we'll get one of our staff members to post the link to that webpage in our chat. It is beltline.org/master planning updates. And that is where you can find the master plan updates for sub areas 1, 2, 3, and 5, which are areas on the southwest side of the Atlanta Beltline, as well as the south and southeast. And we have been working for the last year and a half to update those master plans. And as I said before, we are just now initiating the process with City Council to have them adopted for information into the comprehensive development plan. And we'll be happy to speak with you more offline if you'd want to learn more. Another question about cyclists and access points. Actually, that's the question that I read already. So I'll get rid of that. There's a question about a good contact to discuss partnerships with the school in the area, which is KIPP STRIVE Academy. And I will again point you to myself as a place to get started, and I will connect you with the best person out in the community or on our staff, or whomever is the most appropriate person to connect you with. Another question: if there isn't seating in the initial construction, are there locations identified in the plan for future benches? And would the Beltline allow neighborhoods to make donations for benches?
All right, Whitney, I'm actually gonna pull Kim for this one. Kim, do you have any direction on allowing people to, or if we take donations for benches?
Yeah, I think the idea was to keep the plaza area flexible for community use in lieu of putting fixed furniture in. Obviously, loose furniture might walk off. So again, I think, like if the community wanted to bring lawn chairs over and have a gathering after we're past this COVID, or hang out, the open plaza provides maximum flexibility. I think that if someone wanted to raise funds for a permanent bench, we could definitely look at that. That's a possibility. Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand the question exactly, but.
Kim, one of the questions was, would you allow neighborhoods to donate money for the benches?
We don't have a program set up for that, but we could try to work something out.
Got it. So it seems like that is something we can talk about more in detail. I will be at the Westview Neighborhood Association meeting on next Monday. So if that was a Westview Neighborhood Association resident, participant, please let's talk more about it. We are getting to the top of the hour, and I'd like to answer one more question. There are a few more that we weren't able to address live, but remember that all of these questions and answers will be posted on our website and available to you after this meeting. And the last question before we move on, we do have a few polls I would like you to entertain. The question is, what security features are designed for all of the Beltline?
Yeah, so that question is for me. So through at certain locations along the Beltline, we actually have bollards that prevents vehicles from actually entering certain locations along the Beltline. Also, we have 360 view, security cameras. We have lighting that we include on all the same on all BeltLine segments. For right now, that's pretty much some of the security measures that we include on the BeltLine. Kim, do you have any other comments? But I think that's,
Yeah,
that's where
I'm not sure if you mentioned lighting, Hope, but we also try
Mhm.
lighting levels and also just design for safeties. I think you heard Matt earlier talking about, looking for dark spots, looking for places where there's not good visibility. So we always try to include that in the design.
All right, Whitney.
Whitney, you're on mute.
Hey, I said a lot of things. Starting with thank you, Kim. Thank you, Hope, for answering those questions. Thank you, everyone on the phone and on Zoom right now, Facebook Live as well, for hanging in with us. Kick it with us for a few more moments. We have some poll questions, starting with how did you hear about this meeting? It really helps us to get participation from all of your neighbors when we know what communication works best for people that have actually reached us. There were many people that have just joined the BeltLine meeting for the first time, and we want to make sure that we continue to expand our reach. 87% of the communication came directly from the BeltLine so far, according to our poll. The next poll question is, what is your preferred method of communication? Social media, email, automated phone calls, text message, or U.S. Postal Service? %78% of participants taking the poll appreciate email as their preferred method of communication. But that also is rivaled by a simple text message and social media. Was this meeting helpful to you? Yes. Great. Great, great. And in the poll now, while we're at 100% yes. All right. That is really good to know. There were questions about all of the links that we made available in the chat. Of course, some of you still have unanswered questions. I said it before that you can reach us anytime, myself at my phone number or email. My phone number comes directly to my phone, or you can reach out to Hope Gist at our email or phone number listed here online. 404-477-3574 is my number. And Hope, and this is for the benefit of people listening on the phone, is 404-477-3634. All of these notes, including the links, will be posted on our website, beltline.org. And if you want to stay in the conversation, for those of you who have participated for the first time, and even our returning folks, we have a few upcoming meetings starting on February the 15th. We will be talking about the Special Service District and how we will build the BeltLine for all, with a study group meeting focused in our Westside geography on February 15th. We'll focus on the Southwest geography, which is the geography that RDA Access Point is located within, on February 16th, just the day after. We'll move on to our Northeast study group on February 23rd, and March 1st, we'll wrap things up with the Westside study group. Our quarterly briefing, the first one of the year, will occur on February 18th at 6 p.m. And that is a meeting where you will be able to hear all things BeltLine updates that have occurred within the last quarter. And we'll answer your questions and hear your comments at that time. And with that said, we are at the end of the agenda, the Q&A. Thank you all for your gracious participation and being here virtually. I know it takes something particularly unique to connect with folks through digital communication. And if I don't see you at a meeting, then hopefully I will see you masked up on the BeltLine. Thank you. Good night.